Securing the timber in there to stop any rocking motion is really what the jig is all about. If I flip this board over, you can see trying to bandsaw that freehand would be really dangerous. So if it were a really bad shape, I also could cut some wedges just to hold it somewhere near before I put my screw fixings in from the end. The screw fixings I've got are basically a good size heavy gauge screw. It's coming through the plywood. It's got a good washer on it. I don't want these screws to keep pulling into the plywood. I want them to pull that plywood to the end of my timber to make sure it's nice and secure. I've got a range of different screw positions in here because this time I've got this large bit of timber. Next time it could be a much smaller piece. So I want some variation, so I've got some fixing points for later. When I put the timber in there, also I know I've got this set up that the bandsaw is just outside the line of this plywood. So I can eye up my timber on here with my waist to the left hand side of this plywood line, and I know what I'm going to be removing. My first cut, after I've got it nicely secured and I know that it's stable, is just to take a good straight line off and let that curved piece fall away. Once we've got that straight line, I can flip it over by 90 degrees. My flat face can then reference against the bottom of my jig, and I can get a nice square edge to it. Once I've got those two square edges, this jig is basically redundant. I can then reference those two square edges on my bed and my fence and just do planking in a standard manner. My first straight and squaring cut on the jig went really well. Really good, clean and flat finish. By the time I got to my third cut and started to plank the timber, the bandsaw is beginning to waver. Reason being, the blade I have in there is a typical blade that we use in our workshop for cutting our dry timber in sections perhaps 4, 5, 6 inches high. For cutting through this bulk of wet green timber, this is not the right blade to be using. If I were cutting more of this, then what I want to be buying is a blade which is more like 1 teeth per inch, much bigger gullets for taking away this large amount of timber. The one I have in here is a 3/4 vary pitch blade. Means for every inch we've got 3 or 4 teeth. So in a timber this wide, we've got 30 or 40 teeth in the timber and also not enough set. So it's overworking the blade. It has cut it and it would cut the rest of the bulk, but it's not ideal. You can also see the amount of resin buildup that's on this blade. I will get some resin cleaner, spray the blade off, remove the resin, and then it'll be good to go on our standard work. The jig, which was made that was quite adaptable, can go back in the storeroom, but that can be used in the future for shorter and longer pieces, and obviously different bulk sizes as well, because of the amount of settings we've got in the length and the positioning of our screw holes. So a good jig for dealing with this round bulk timber. Don't try and push it through by hand. You will end up with problems.